Okay, today we're going to be working on the 78 Concorde. You know, before the spring broke on this car, I made up a list of a couple of things it needed, which was front shocks and the water pump. I mean, the water pump's not leaking, but a quick way to check it is you just check the bearing for play. And this one definitely has play in it. So, plus the dry belts aren't that healthy. So today we're going to toss in a water pump and the two main dry belts. So let's see what we got. Okay, as you can see, we got the car covered with fender covers. Doesn't matter what kind of car it is, that's a good practice to do. Plus it's a little more comfortable to lean on and you can rest your tools on it. The coolant's draining out, which in this car I have red coolant in it. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up the alternator, take that belt off. I'll loosen up the power steering, take that belt off. I'll loosen up this air pump before I loosen up the power steering, get that belt off. Then I'm going to wind up popping this fan off, and then we'll be able to see everything. So, I have the new pump over here in a box. I went with a brand new pump, and I got some brand new dry belts in there. So let's tear it down. Okay, we got the fan, the spacer, and the water pump pulley off, and obviously the drive belts. So as you could see, they use an adapter here for a mount, and it goes to the water pump to hold the power steering on. And it looks like, I mean, I definitely have to get out of the way, but I might have to take this out of the way to get the front of this off, to get the air pump off, to get down there. So, well, let's see. Okay, by taking these couple of bolts off, these 3 bolts here that connect the water pump to the power steering, you're able to slide this bracket forward, which takes it off the stud of the air pump. You move the air pump up, and you can bring this bracket. Oh, it's hard to do with one hand. And you can bring the bracket around the side, and now the whole water pump is exposed. The water pump only has 4 bolts holding on. This heater hose and the low radiator hose. So let's get the new one out. Well, let's get the old one out. Set the new one up. Let's put her in. Here's a little trick for any novices out there. If you want to know where the bolts are and what you're taking off, just look at the new part. We've already pulled these 2 bolts off. That was for the power steering bracket. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts holding it to the motor. So that's all I really have to look for, even though everything's covered with grease. And another thing I noticed, as you go through the years for this motor, for the 6-cylinder and the AMC, the early years did not have this because they didn't use the GM style power steering pump. So if you have that style, you make sure you get that year pump. And a couple of years after this, they went to a serpentine belt, and the pump spins the other way. So before you put it in, make sure the blades on your impeller are identical to the ones you're pulling out. Because if they're backwards, you're not going to get any coolant flow. So when I pull that one out, I'm going to make sure it's identical before I put it in. There's the hose for the lower radiator hose. There's the hose for the heater. And that's it. So I'm going to take those 4 bolts out and see what we got. Okay, we got the pump out. Here's another thing we want to check. We want to check from the snout and the flange where the pulley would mount to where the actual, it sits on the block of the motor. You want to take that measurement because there are different lengths. I found that out with this year too. There are different lengths. There's definitely different lengths with Chevys and all that. So I mean, you could do it with a ruler, but I have this here. And it doesn't matter what the measurement is. I'm just going to give it a quick measurement here because the difference was like 1/4 of an inch or whatever it is. I'm going to check this. Just move it over. Oops. It's hard to see what and do the camera at the same time. And check it. And it is the same. And as for the impeller that we were talking about before, this one uses an open impeller with 3 6, 8 blades. This one uses a closed one with 5 blades, but they're in the same direction, pointing this way. Okay, this one actually flows more water because it keeps the water contained. This one just wings the water out to the sides. Okay, so it actually moves less water. Plus it keeps the water in on the sides over here. You'll see that when you see a high volume pump, you'll see that it usually has a plate on it here too. Okay, but the important thing for me is that they're going in the right direction, and they're definitely going in the right direction. They're actually angled this way, very slightly, and these are angled this way. And when we look at it, we have the same mounting bolts here. We have the same hole for the heater core here. We've measured the height of it. That's right. It has the same diameter for the low radiator hose. So basically what we have to do is come down here and clean up the motor and put it back in. Uh-oh, don't let RP see the oil down there. He'll want to come do my timing chain.